Some video games go down in history as classics, treasured in the collective memory of the gaming community. But this isn't always the case, or at least it doesn't always seem that way. What about the games that made a huge impact on us when we first played them, but for whatever reason seem to have now drifted into the shadows of popular culture? Games for which there is no fan art, no cosplay, no petition for an HD remake. We can probably all think of games we loved, but that it felt as if only we played. And the Outside Xtra and Outside Xbox teams are no different. Did these games really happen, or did we simply dream them? Let's find out, because here are the forgotten games that we still think about at night.
I'm sure there will be loads of jokes in the comments of, oh, why isn't Ellen chosen Kingdoms of Amalur? Because everyone forgot that game, but they didn't. It's brilliant and it's amazing, and THQ Nordic have bought the rights to it, and we're going to get a whole expanded universe now. We're all going to know everything, aren't we, Lucas?
We all remember it now.
Yes. So I'm instead going to go with one that is from my childhood, and I remember playing a lot with my sister, and I hope you're ready for a spookening, because it's Casper, the Friendly Ghost on PlayStation 1. And look at this with the blooming manuals that were that thick. This game is a fantastic little top-down puzzle game where you play Casper and you're going around Whipstaff Manor. There's a little kind of 16-bit painted Christina Ricci who's you're chatting to in little cutscenes.
What's it like to die? Like being born, only backwards.
Basically, you have to go around and find the pieces of a Lazarus machine that will hopefully bring Casper back to life. There were no enemies in this game. It was just like a puzzle, top-down adventure game where you go through, find loads of keys and chests and stuff, but every once in a while, one of the mean uncles would show up and chase you. And you either had to like feed them hamburgers or spray them with perfume and stuff, and then eventually they'd go away and it'd be fine. But it was a little bit random, and that's why I didn't like it, and that's why I played it with my sister. But it was great. It's one of the first games that I went through vents a lot, because as Casper, as a ghost, you could like go and go through vents. I actually read up an old review of it, and they were like, it's a little bit obtuse, and it's like, you know when you're a kid and you play a puzzle game and you're like, oh, maybe I'm just not grown up enough to get it, and then you grow up into an adult and you're like, oh no, these puzzle games back in the day weren't very clear. See all LucasArts games. Casper himself is actually a little bit translucent, like you can kind of see through him, which apparently at the time was amazing graphics. I don't know, I was just a kid going, yeah, it's a ghost. And it's great, like you go out into the gardens, there's like a maze bit, and I just have a lot of like beloved memories of sitting playing with my sister. It's interesting, I think the reason why it kind of isn't at the forefront of people's memories is because it is a movie tie-in game. People collectively put this in with the, oh, it's just Casper. They don't see it as its own standalone game, but really, I think as a video game, it was good. I mean, you could just change the models and it would still be just a fun, like, wander around. It was really nice gameplay because you didn't have enemies coming at you all the time. It was quite good for kids to play, and it was fairly like slow-paced but not boring. Like, you just kind of wandered around. It had good spooky music. It was just very chilled out, but also spooky, which is my aesthetic.
So the development team that made the original Tomb Raider, super famous, super successful game, try and guess what they then went on to make. It was a weird 4-character dystopian sci-fi puzzle game called Project Eden, and I bloody loved it.
Sounds like that ride will be going on for a while yet.
Perhaps. But the disturbance at the factory must be serious for them to be sending us in.
Yeah, I suppose so. Control never tells us the whole story. Likes to keep a little bit back as a surprise. Still, sounds like a dumb mission, though. We're members of the UPA, not boiler servicemen.
Settle down, people. It sounds like we're here.
So the premise of Project Eden is essentially all the rich people are at the top of these giant towers and all the poor people are at the bottom. It's a classic dystopian setup, which is introduced to you in an intro movie where some very old school 3D rendered people wander around, and a now sort of terrifying little girl drops a teddy bear, and you watch it kind of drop all the way down from the rich people bit at the top down to the horrible mutant bit at the bottom of 4 characters. One of whom is the kind of captain, and he's good at like talking his way through problems. And then there's the like hacker lady, and she can hack terminals. Then there's the tech guy who can repair mechanical things. And then there's the giant robot with the rocket launcher who can walk through like gas and fire and electric and is just generally like hardcore. And anyway, you get plunged into this big conspiracy. Every single level of this game is suspended at some point in this sort of like sociological strata, which is not a phrase I thought I'd use when I woke up this morning. But there you go. So you can see all the way up to the sort of speck of light at the top of these towers, and then all the way down into this sort of bottomless abyss. You could play the entire thing in split screen co-op, which was absolutely, like, for the time, bonkers. Not that I could ever persuade any of my friends to sit through this weird sci-fi game for more than about 10 minutes. No, honestly, guys, it gets fun in a minute. I'm not going to say it's perfect. I mean, the voice acting is terrible.
Okay, people, we have a problem. I suppose you've all heard of real meat.
Oh yeah, I could show you a...
Okay, cut it out.
The other thing about it is that there's this problem with the pathfinding, and it's not really a pathfinding problem in the traditional sense where characters get stuck places and, you know, like trapped in a doorway and they're just rotating on the spot, panicking, like a lot of AI companions do. The problem with the pathfinding in Project Eden is that it follows you exactly. Like baby ducks. You know how baby ducks imprint on their mother and then like follow her around, right? So, say for example you're struggling with the slightly wonky controls and you mount a sort of handrail and then walk along it for a bit and then drop off. All 3 of your companions will all do exactly the same thing and climb up onto the handrail, walk along a bit and fall off. But I still love it and I still think about it late at night when everyone's gone to bed and I'm lying staring at the ceiling. I'm thinking about Project Eden.
Is this game why you like Dark Souls? That thing where you can look to the end of the game from the beginning?
Yes, although it's not quite as technically capable as Dark Souls insofar as you're unlikely to see too far ahead into the game. That idea of a kind of coherent world really stuck with me. I'm really glad they made it, and it's the sort of game that just would never ever be made today, and that's why I sort of cherish it and hold it tight and hug it and think about the good times we had together.
So the first game I'm going to talk about today is Donald Duck's Quackshot. I think that's the official title of it, which is a Sega Mega Drive game starring Donald Duck, the best Disney character. Fight me, Mickey fans. Yeah, he knows. So it was the like Indiana Jones style Donald thing. You know, they do that a lot where Donald is basically Indiana Jones and he has adventures and stuff. It was that form of Donald Duck. And the story was he was like going through a book in Scrooge's library, and he opens this book and a treasure map falls out to this like legendary treasure, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna go off and find the treasure. And then he's like, come on, underage nephews, climb in this plane with me and we'll go to India. And Daisy comes out and she's like, Donald, you were supposed to be at my house for lunch an hour ago. He's like, there's no time, Daisy, for God's sake. I'm off to get a treasure. It was like a Metroidvania game in that you unlocked new equipment as you went through the game, and it unlocked new areas of the world. So you could see things, but you didn't know how to get past obstacles until you had more equipment. So you start out with a gun that fires plungers. And then you get an upgrade to that, which instead of yellow plungers, you now have red plungers. And the red plungers stick to walls, so you can make ladders up walls with plungers. You kept having to go back to Duckburg to visit Gyro Gearloose, who upgraded your equipment. It had a very odd atmosphere to it, which like a lot of those early Disney video games do, in that they have to find a sort of reason for having an ice level and a fire level and things like that. And so everything just is slightly weird and detached in a way that when you're a kid, just you go, oh, this makes sense. This is the way the world is. And then you look at it later on and you're like, why did Donald Duck fight a zombie Viking? Why was Donald in Dracula's castle? Something you'll like, Luke, I know you're a big fan of this aspect of Donald's personality, is that the game, as well as like your health and like the equipment you've got, it also has a temper meter, and you collect chili peppers. Donald just flies into a blind rage and just starts like raging his way through the level, just demolishing everything in his path. He's completely invulnerable, just squawking his head off. And then, yeah, he'll just like snap out of it and just carry on as if nothing's happened.
Sounds healthy.
Yeah, it's a healthy way to manage his rage. And I don't know why more people don't remember it, because I haven't really spoken to many people who've played Quackshot. Maybe it's that everyone just had a Super Nintendo and they didn't have a Mega Drive. But I know that Christian Donlan from Eurogamer is a big fan, and that guy's got good taste in games, so he remembers. Bloody Mickey Mouse. Everyone's like, oh, Castle Evolution. Remember that? I do remember that. It wasn't as good as Quackshot.
So my forgotten game is one that came out in 2004. It came out on every platform at the time, and yet, weirdly, having played it and enjoyed it, I don't think I've ever heard the name of this game mentioned, uttered, said since, and the game is Second Sight.
Shut up and get down to the ground! What are you doing? Stop that! Hands on the floor!
I can see cameraman James thinking, reaching into his memory. He'll have heard of it at the time. It was a big deal, but it's just faded from memory. It is a third-person action adventure game. You play someone called John Vatic. You're a researcher in parapsychology, and you wake up one day mysteriously, and some things appear to have happened to you, and now you have weird psychic powers.
This is too weird.
And throughout the game, you find out how you came to have them, and there are shadowy organizations. The story is split into two timelines, so it's you with the powers and then like you back in the days before you did. The reason that I think this game deserves to be remembered is because a lot of the games you play now really, really strongly remind me of this, especially something like Dishonored.
What the? Stop! You've been found guilty!
You had like a standard kind of weapons and stuff, but then you also had these psychic powers that could be used sometimes for fun. You could just throw people around using your psychic powers, or you could also use them for stealth. You could do things like charm.
Turn around. Look away, just walk away.
Which worked on people but not on cameras. And they sort of gave you this toolbox of fun psychic powers and then said like, here you go, you got to get from this point of the level to the end, go crazy, like use the powers however you want. So really, really strongly reminds me now of games like Dishonored and Hitman, and a kind of style of game that is pretty well known and well understood and ubiquitous, but at the time, I guess I didn't really appreciate how unusual it was or how commonplace those ideas were going to become in gaming. It's really fun to play as well, and like I am not someone who enjoys stealth games or ever taking the stealthy option. Ellen is nodding because she knows.
It's painful to watch.
But this is one of the very few games I've ever played that made me enjoy a stealthy approach. The story is kind of schlocky and it's big conspiracies and like secret research things.
You can't stop us now. We have samples all over the country. You're too late.
Sample. They were people!
And obviously you have to like uncover the conspiracy of how you came to have powers and shut it all down. And one thing that's noteworthy about this game is that it was developed by Free Radical Design, who were best known for doing the Time Splitters games, which are also, discontinued, and we may never get another Time Splitters game, but I feel like those games do have a place in that sort of video game pop culture memory canon. You say Time Splitters and people, even if they haven't played them, they're like, oh, I sort of vaguely remember that and understand it to be a good and respectable series. It shares like some of the art style in common, I think. There's a sort of slight cartoonishness to the animation and the way everything looks. I think you can kind of feel that influence in that it's a well-built game and it's not afraid to do some really like weird, fantastical stuff. The rights to Second Sight were actually acquired not that long ago by THQ Nordic, when I think it bought the Time Splitters stuff as well, so you never know, it could come back. I don't like to say this around Ellen, but I'm not really sure how likely being acquired by THQ Nordic makes a re-release or a remaster or something, but who knows?
It's gonna happen, Luke!
It really could. Really could. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good game, You know, there's a possible universe in which it did get a sequel, and now instead of the Hitman games, you have like the Second Sight expanded universe and all the kind of John Vatic lore and stuff like that. Who knows? But it was a cool game, and you never ever hear it mentioned, which I think is a shame.
The trailer looks excellent.
Did you just watch a trailer for it, James?
The trailer looks excellent.
It's cool, right?
That looks well ahead of the story.
Yeah, it's quite cool. It's pretty cool. I've impressed James, yes.
Well, friends, I've brought you here, I've gathered you, assembled you before me to talk about a little game called Barbie, actually.
Barbie what?
No, just Barbie.
Just Barbie.
That's it, yeah. This was so early in video game history, they didn't even see fit to be like Barbie Origins or like Barbie Evolution. Barbie came out in 1984, that's how early we're talking, and that's not when I played it. I played it much, much later because I inherited a collection of Commodore 64 games, and at the time I was too young to understand that they were old and sometimes crappy games in that collection. Boy, there was some dreck in there. But not Barbie. Well, maybe Barbie. I mean, I do think about this game probably like 60% of my waking hours because I really enjoyed it. I didn't even like Barbie. But then that said, the graphics are such that you couldn't tell it was Barbie. It's just a sort of collection of pink shapes with yellow hair. It was basically a kind of dress up and driving game.
Hello? Hi, Barbie. It's Ken. Would you like to go to the prom?
Sounds like fun.
Great. See you in an hour.
You dress up, you dress Barbie up by taking her to shops in her Barbie wagon or whatever it's called. And yeah, you're dressing to take Barbie on a date, so you go to the right shops to buy the right clothes. At the end of the game, if I recall correctly, you go on your date with Ken. But while you're out collecting clothes for your very important, I can't underline how important this date is. Wow, there were some really bad lessons in this game now that I think about it. While you're out doing this, Ken can like move the goalposts, and he like tried to call you while you weren't home because no one had a mobile phone, I guess, then. And he's like, Barbie, we're not going to the opera now, we're going to play tennis together.
Hi, Barbie. It's Ken. Would you like to play tennis?
Sounds like fun.
Great. See you in an hour. Hi, Barbie. It's Ken. Would you like to go to the pool? Would you like to go to the gym? Would you like to go on a picnic?
Sounds like fun.
And then the end fail state of the game is you and Ken at a tennis match and you're wearing an opera gown and evening gloves. So that's, imagine the embarrassment. Imagine, game over, Barbie. It's all over for you. That was Barbie. But in my defense, I have extremely fond memories of it because I played it with my sister. We had this collection of C64 games, and just a few of them had any sort of appeal for very, very, very young children. And this was very simple and had like nice colours and shapes, I suppose. It was surprisingly compelling. I guess you could compare it to like a web-based game that you might sink some time into these days. You know, like very simple and straightforward and kind of compelling and addictive in a sort of casual way. You know, like sort of cooperatively deciding what to put Barbie in while you're driving around. Yeah, while you're playing with your sister. That was our first game we played together, and then moved on to like, I want to say better stuff like Toe Jam and Earl. So yeah, that was the beginning of our co-op gaming career, and that's probably why I have such strong and fond memories of it. I wonder if that C64 is still sitting at home in my parents' house somewhere.
Maybe it still runs.
Can you imagine?
24-hour live stream.
Yeah, of me trying to connect a Commodore 64 to a HD television. Yeah, tune in for that.
I'm back again with another game to share with you, and yet again, it is also a licensed product.
Oh, here it is. But where's all the pieces? Inside. What's wrong?
Either a lot of the puzzle pieces are missing, or it's the easiest puzzle ever.
Rugrats! And this is also my copy that hasn't We moved house and it didn't last, but yay! This game came out the same year as the Ocarina of Time, I think.
Ouch.
It was a great game. Basically, the search for Reptar was actually a search for a Reptar puzzle.
We'll find out, you Reptar, even if we got to search the whole wide world.
Each kind of like level mini-game was based upon an episode of Rugrats. So there's one where Chucky loses his glasses, and so that is I think from what I remember, is a game of hide and seek, but Chucky doesn't have his glasses, so it's just two little black dots, and he's just like, One particular game that I absolutely loved in it was a mini golf one, and it was a multiplayer one, so me and my sister would often just boot this up to play a good mini golf mini game, and there was like an amazing hole with Reptar on it and stuff. It was so good. Also, a level that I didn't like that much, not because it was bad, but because it was spooky. You have to stop the ghost, you have to shine a light on the ghost to stop it from getting you walking around a dark house. Thing is, I know a lot of people out there have played this game, and I'm sad that it's not more remembered as like a classic. So yeah, it's got all the levels. Chucky loses his glasses. Ice Cream Mountain, that is the mini golf. All of them were based on episodes of the show. One of the best episodes being Instant on Aisle 7, where Tommy has to find Reptar cereal because he really wants it. And that is honestly the best episode of Rugrats ever. If you like Rugrats and basically want to replay episodes of it, but in like a weirdly rendered 3D world, which was pretty good at the time. The apparently reviews at the time said the gameplay isn't great, which is wrong. But the visuals, the presentation is brilliant, and because of the various accessibility things, it was really good for kids. So yeah, please remaster this.
Larry, clean up on aisle 7.
The second game I'm going to talk about is a game called BioForge. Very early 3D game. It's a sci-fi adventure in which you play a cyborg who wakes up in like a hospital/prison with no memory of who he is or how he got there or why he now has weird fingers that are sort of metal and there's not enough of them. One of the very, very first things you do in the game is beat a blue alien to death with his own severed arm while shouting, "I have no wish to harm you."
We should not be enemies. We should work together. I have no wish to harm you.
Which, I mean, stop beating him with his own arm, maybe. And I was probably too young to be playing BioForge at the time. But I remember the story, it really left a lot up to you to sort of discover as you went along. So you have no memory of why you're there, and the space station is quite deserted, I think due to technical reasons, because they couldn't have too many characters on screen at once. But it had this very sort of lonely, mysterious feel to it. I feel like a lot of the limitations of your character were based on the limitations of technology at the time. So like combat is really awkward because it's that really early 3D thing where you have to be exactly you're like a Roomba and you need to be exactly positioned in the right way to like fight anything. But they're like, you're just getting used to your new cyborg body.
People deserve to die after what you did to me.
If you're like, oh, I ran into a wall and fell off a thing, and they're like, yeah, those new cyborg bodies really will take some getting used to. You've been looking at footage of this whole time, and I'm going to say the graphics were good. And you're going to say, what are you talking about, Andy? It looks awful. It looks like the worst thing I've ever seen. And you've got to remember, this was a long time ago, and at the time, it looked really good. The animation was really good. I remember he had an animation where he was like, ran up to a ledge, and he'd be like, whoa. And I was like, what? It's just like real things. And I think there was going to be a sequel, but it never materialized, which is a shame because there were some really good ideas in BioForge, and it did a lot of things. Certainly for me, it was the first time I'd seen a lot of things. Like, I think it was probably the first 3D game I played in that kind of Resident Evil fixed camera pre-rendered backgrounds and a 3D model character. I think it was the first one of those I ever played. My other strong memory of BioForge is the fact that the character would just scream the name of whatever it is the item you'd pick up was. And my particular favorite one of those was a big gun! A big gun! He loves to shout. Yeah, so BioForge, check it out if you haven't. You probably can't still play it, and you probably can't even look at it now because it looks so awful. But at the time, it was good. You have to take my word for it.
So those were some of the games that have lingered in our minds and sort of right on the edge of being forgotten. And you're like, oh my God, who remembers this? Did you play that? And people are like, no, what? Did you dream it? And you're like, no, it was good. Just take my word for it, please. And if we've done this video right, then right now you are currently thinking of all of those games that you played and it feels like only you played and maybe didn't get the recognition they deserve or don't get that recognition nowadays. And I want to see those suggestions. I want to know what you're thinking about in the comments, and maybe in some small way by writing it on the internet that will preserve it. Other people will see it, and you never know. You might find the one other person who played that game, and you can both nerd out over Nickelodeon 3D Movie Maker or something. Yeah, but if you enjoyed this, then hey, why not watch some of our other videos? Here's one from us. It's all about ways games mess with your brain, games you can't stop seeing in real life. And down here, there's one from our sister channel, Outside Xbox. It's all about levels that you get in every darn game. And if you enjoyed this, then why not subscribe and ring the bell? It's somewhere down here, I think. Ding-a-ling-a-ling. Thanks for watching.